The Carolina Panthers are turning January into a problem nobody wants to solve. People keep looking at the NFC South like it is a soft corner of the league, like whoever comes out of it is just there to fill a spot. But here is the twist. Charlotte is starting to feel like a place where good teams get embarrassed. One careless drive, one deep ball forced into a tight window, one moment of panic, and the whole game flips. This is not a cute story. It is a warning. It starts with Bryce Young because the vibe around him has changed from survive to control. Under Dave Canales, he is not playing rushed, he is playing calm, like he expects the storm and still stays on schedule. When Chuba Hubbard is hitting the line with force and Rico Dowdle is stretching runs wide, the offense stops feeling small. It feels steady, then it hits you with something sharp. And that is what makes this team dangerous. They do not need everything to be perfect to stay in it, they just need the game close enough to land the punch late. Now add the part nobody wants to admit out loud. The defense is making deep passing feel like a bad idea in this stadium. J.C. Horn is not giving free space outside, and Derek Brown is not letting quarterbacks step up and breathe. Even a name like Matthew Stafford has to play cleaner when the middle is collapsing and the sidelines are locked. But the most shocking part is not even how they play at home. It is how they got the division in the first place, because that ending was chaos, and the rulebook picked a winner. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Panthers and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 100 likes on this video. The NFC South did not end with a clean finish. It ended with a scoreboard sweat that had 3 fan bases celebrating too early. Carolina was not just watching their own game, they were watching the chaos around them like it was a live wire. The moment that changed everything was Atlanta slipping. Past New Orleans in a tight 19-17 game with Kirk Cousins leading the way, and suddenly the whole division picture snapped into place. One result, one late swing, and what felt impossible the day before started to look real. Then the standings did something that makes people lose their minds. It stacked 3 teams on the exact same line. The Panthers, the Buccaneers, and the Falcons all landed at 8 wins and 9 losses. And inside the division, they all sat at 3-3. No easy winner, no clean crown, just the tiebreaker rules stepping in like a judge. When the league went to the games those 3 played against each other, Carolina had the edge with 3-1, Tampa settled at 2-2, and Atlanta fell to 1-3, which is why Baker Mayfield ended up watching the playoff hosting spot belong to someone else. And here is the part people argue about for days. Who deserves to host when the record looks ugly on paper? Carolina does not. Get points for style. They get points for taking care of the matchups that mattered earlier. The ones inside the division that other teams let slip. That is why this title feels heavier than a random lucky break. It feels like a receipt getting cashed in after years of being on the wrong side of every bounce. If you want to understand why this moment hit Charlotte the way it did, you have to rewind to the years when the Panthers stopped feeling dangerous, and everything started falling apart. There was a time when Carolina did not need permission to be feared. Cam Newton was the engine, and everything around him had that punch in it. Luke Kuechly saw plays before they happened. Thomas Davis hit like a message, and Josh Norman made every catch feel personal. Ted Ginn Jr. could change a whole game with one ball in the air, and Jonathan Stewart could turn a normal drive into a long fight. Then it faded, not in one crash, but in slow pieces. And that slow fall is what made it hurt more. When the ownership changed, the hope was simple: clean reset, calm building, clear plan. Instead, it got loud, and every season felt like a new idea trying to erase the last one. The roster kept moving like the ground would not stop shaking. Christian McCaffrey was gone. DJ Moore was moved in the deal that brought the top pick. Brian Burns was later moved too, after years of talk about what he meant to the defense. None of it felt like one steady build. It felt like a team trying to fix 5 problems at the same time. That is why this year hits different, because the mood is not just happy, it is cautious, like fans are waiting for the catch. Carolina has been burned by quick promises before, so trust does not come easy now. The real question is not the past. It is whether the new plan finally protects the one player this whole reset depends on. And once you zoom in on that, you land right on the most important shift of all, how the quarterback went from drowning to looking like he belongs. Bryce Young had a moment where it felt like the league was ready to stamp his story and move on. One week, you are the face of the rebuild. The next week, you are holding a tablet while Andy Dalton takes the snaps, and the noise gets louder than the playbook. The shocking part is not that people doubted him, that is normal. The shocking part is how fast doubt turns into disrespect when a team is still messy around a young quarterback. He was not just fighting defenses, he was fighting the idea that the decision was already made. Then something shifted, and it was not a highlight. It was how he handled the ugly parts. He stopped rushing throws just to survive the down. He started buying time with his feet without turning every play into panic. When the game got tight, he did not look like he was begging for it to end. He looked like he could sit in the heat and still make the right choice. That is why the numbers actually matter now, not because they are perfect, but because they prove the story changed. 3,100 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That is a quarterback who is finally playing with a real grip on the game. Now the pressure gets sharper because the playoffs do not care about excuses or growth speeches. This is where one bad first quarter can erase months of progress, and one strong finish can flip the way the entire league talks about you. The next question is simple, and it decides everything. Can Carolina give Bryce Young a clean path early, real help on the ground, and targets that keep the chains moving, so he is not forced to rescue every drive on his own? This is where Carolina quietly changed the feel of their entire offense up front. Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt brought a tougher pocket, the kind that does not fold the second a defense shows pressure. Austin Corbett and Cade Mays give them steadier snaps and cleaner angles so drives do not start with chaos. And when Ikem Ekwonu and Taylor Moton hold the edges, the quarterback can actually sit in the moment, not sprint away from it. That one change turns panic football into planned football. Now you look at the targets, and you can see roles, not just names. Jalen Coker is the kind of receiver who keeps a drive alive when nothing feels open, just sharp routes and strong hands in traffic. Tetairoa McMillan forces defenders to back up because one clean look can turn into a big play fast. Xavier Legette brings that sudden threat where a normal throw can become a momentum swing, and Tommy Tremble adds the hard edge, the guy who makes the middle of the field feel like a fight. That mix makes defenses guess, and guessing is how you steal first downs. But here's the tension. Having tools is not the same as using them clean. There have been stretches where the offense gets close, then wastes the chance with a messy start to the drive, or a stalled red zone trip that should have been points. And when that happens, it puts the whole night back on the other side of the ball. Because if Carolina stops leaving points behind, the defense can play meaner, faster, and that is when this stadium turns into a real problem for any passer who wants to push the ball downfield. The scary thing about this Carolina defense is how it stays calm while the other team starts to press. Early on, it looks normal, a few completions, a few safe throws, nothing loud. Then the air changes. Routes get bumped, timing gets messy, and the quarterback starts holding the ball one extra beat because the first look is not there anymore. That is when mistakes show up, not because the other team is bad, but because Carolina keeps forcing patience, and patience is not how most offenses are built to win. What nobody is talking about is how much of it is teamwork, not one hero. Christian Rosaboom keeps things clean in the middle, the kind of steady play that makes everything else faster. Trayvon Moehrig and Nick Scott sit back and read the eyes, then close space like a door slamming shut. You look up and realize they are giving up very few throws that travel more than 20 yards in the air, because the deep shot is not open, it is bait. And when the ball does come out late, Carolina is already breaking on it. Then comes the part that makes it feel unfair, the edge speed that keeps the pocket from ever feeling safe. Nick Skirtin brings real heat that forces rush throws, and Princely Umanmielen adds that second wave that keeps quarterbacks from stepping up and resetting. This is not random. It is built. It is a defense put together to play one style over and over until you crack. And that leads to the bigger question. Who decided Carolina needed this exact identity? And how did the people in charge finally stop the constant reset cycle? The loudest change in Carolina is not a play. It is the feeling that the building finally knows what it is doing. Dave Canales is not coaching like he is trying to win one headline and survive the week. He is coaching like he wants the same answers to show up every Sunday. The shocking part is how rare that has been here. When a team has lived through constant resets, even good players start guessing. Now the guessing is fading, and that is when a team gets dangerous. Dan Morgan matters because he is building to match the way the coaches want to play, not just collecting talent and praying it fits. You can feel the difference in the kind of football they chase. They want drives that do not panic, defense that does not blink, and a team that stays the same when the game gets tight. That is how you win the ugly moments that decide a season. And it also changes the pressure on the quarterback, because the plan is not asking him to be perfect, it is asking him to be steady. Now comes the real test, because structure looks great until a playoff opponent walks in with nothing to lose. The bracket does not care about good vibes, it cares about matchups, and Carolina is about to find out if their new identity holds when the other sideline has elite talent and a veteran trigger man ready to attack any mistake. The visitor coming to Charlotte could turn this into a shootout or a street fight, and either way the Panthers are stepping into the kind of game that makes the whole league watch. If the Los Angeles Rams walk into Charlotte, it is not going to feel like some normal playoff night. Matthew Stafford has seen every kind of noise, every kind of pressure, every kind of moment where one throw can end a season. That is what makes this dangerous for both sides. Carolina cannot just be brave, they have to be clean. The Rams will not wait for you to settle in. They will test you early, and they will keep testing you until you finally blink. And it gets heavier because it is not only about one quarterback. Puka Nacua can turn a simple catch into a long run that steals your breath, and a veteran target like Davante Adams is the kind of name that forces perfect coverage even when you think you did everything right. That is why the old result matters, not as a memory, but as a warning, because this matchup already showed it can turn into 31-28 chaos fast if a defense loses control for even a few snaps. One busted tackle, one late handoff on a route, one ball that pops loose, and the game becomes a fire you cannot put out. Now zoom out and feel what is really on the line. If Carolina wins this first one, the whole NFC has to take them seriously. Because then you are talking about road trips that used to scare teams, like facing Sam Darnold in Seattle, or Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, or Caleb Williams in Chicago, and the Panthers walking into those places with real belief instead of hope. That is why this first matchup is everything, because it is not only about advancing, it is about changing how the league looks at you. And the next thing you need to see is where this game can swing, the one area Carolina cannot waste, and the one mistake the Rams are waiting to punish.